to Leitner. Puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
Culture State back in the building. Happy to have you here. I'm Chris Lee. That's my man.
I'm Dennis Cox. We're back again, Chris.
Yep. With another great guest, and this is one that kind of fell into our laps. But the last couple episodes kind of fell into our laps, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
I'm not going to complain.
I'm not going to complain about this. This is a big time one as well. So if you are an NC State fan, you definitely know of this guy, NC State football fan. His name is Dewayne Washington. Went on to play for the Minnesota Vikings, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm sorry. What was that team you just said? I'm sorry. What was the team you just said? The Pittsburgh Steelers?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Just want to make sure.
And the Kansas City Chiefs. He ended up having a really good NFL career, played from 94 to 2005, and 31 interceptions in his NFL career.
5 touchdowns as well.
Yep. I mean, this is when we talk about somebody, like he wasn't somebody who was just on the bench. He actually was out there doing things. And he was a big time player for many years in the NFL. So it's a blessing to have him on.
First round draft pick, and if you're going to pick a defensive back or a corner in the first round, you expect him to be your number one guy and locking up against the best receiver on the other team. That's exactly what he did. He went up against guys like Sterling Sharp, T.O., Michael Irvin, Jerry Rice. Those are guys that he lined up against, and some of the best quarterbacks of that era. For example, when he was in Minnesota, you got to play against Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers twice this season. So that's who he was facing early on in his career. And yeah, like you said, 31 interception in his career. I mean, the man stood his ground. That's for sure. You don't last that long as a defensive back in the NFL unless you're really good. Right.
And that's nothing to sneeze at. So he's definitely doing his thing. And, now he's one of those guys where he's taking care of his money. He's still making money, doing his thing in the business world. And so much so that he recently gave a sizable donation to NC State to the tune of $1 million between him and his wife.
That's sizable. $1 million. That's pretty sizable donation.
When you can just say, like, you know what? I don't have a use for this $1 million. Let me give this $1 million away.
Yeah. Go ahead and do it. But I think it's also important, and I think it's also very good that people that are in his position that are able to help are also willing and wanting to help. There's a lot of people that want to help but don't have the means necessarily to help on that scale. And the fact that he not only does, but he's willing to do it. If I had $1 million, it'd be hard for me to give that up to anybody, to anything. It's a lot of people would be very difficult for them to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for him and his wife to sit there and say, hey, we're going to give this back to the school where we went, not only in athletics, but also on the academic end as well, to cultivate a culture at NC State, both academically and athletically. I think it's awesome. And I think it's great. And it shows that anybody that can help out can and should.
So you just admitted right there that you're kind of selfish.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Chris. Hey,
if I had $1 million, I don't know if I could give that to anybody.
I give my $50 back to my lacrosse program at Shenandoah University every year. Okay, because that's what I can give.
But
whatever, man.
If
what you're doing.
If you're if you had $1 million that you could give like that, I'm sure you can give it to Shenandoah.
Yeah, and I would.
Yeah. Dennis, the selfish guy, Cox. All right.
Wow.
So,
Get out.
We appreciate the time from Mr. Washington. We know he had a lot of important things to do, but he was able to give us his time to talk to us on this podcast, even though Dennis is such a heel sometimes.
Whatever. You love playing the good guy so much. Got to give you something to work off of.
That's funny. Coming up after this break, you'll hear from Durham, North Carolina native alumni. Sorry, Dennis, as he's so there shaking his head if you're watching this on YouTube. Durham, North Carolina native, Northern Durham High School alum, went to NC State alum, and former NFL player Dewayne Washington after this break. All right, let's make this whole thing a Bull City theme. Dennis, you got a nice Bull City shirt on right there.
Yeah,
I
dude.
just moved to Durham,
I
North
see
Carolina.
that. I like that.
Yeah.
Give me one of those.
I just moved to Durham, North Carolina myself. And then we have somebody who's from Durham, North Carolina, Dewayne Washington, former NFL player, former NC State player. And also we could put philanthropist right there too on your resume as well, right? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I think we're going to add that now. But yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, guys, for having me.
So let's start with this. Recently you and your wife decided to give a really sizable gift to NC State of $1 million. And I know I know you don't want to make a big deal as far as what you guys are doing, but as far as the impact that you want that money to make over at the school, why was that important for you guys to decide to do that? And what do you hope that comes out of this great gift?
Well, I mean, that's a layered question. With so much that happened in 2020, we were sitting around the house just like everyone else, and between the George Floyd ordeal and the pandemic, we truly felt like it was time for us to step up and give to our beloved university in a different way. So that's kind of how it all started for this particular gift. Obviously, we've given to the university ever since we got out of school. I would say back starting probably in 2005 was probably our first gift to the university. But we really wanted to be intentional about this gift. And we both graduated from the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. So we wanted to put a big focus there, especially on the School of Social Work, where my wife graduated from. Set up 2 endowments in the graduate school and undergraduate school for kids that are pursuing, diversity and equity, within our community. We really felt like, maybe we need to, give our young people somewhat of a nudge, if you will, when it comes to that in particular. So that was something that we were excited about. And we also, we set up an endowment in the Scholars Network, also for our young people that are transitioning into NC State, to increase the retention and the recruitment of Black and or African Americans. Because, at PWIs, obviously, we're the minority, but we really had a really close-knit culture, if you will, when we were there in school back in the 90s. And from talking to some young people, we felt like that was starting to slip somewhat. So we wanted to do whatever we could to try to help enhance that.
I can relate to that from I went to UNCG, and it's PWI, and then it felt like the Black community on campus was very close, tight knit, and because in a way we were trying to mirror the experience at A&T with where we were at,
right.
Like that.
Right.
So I definitely get it from that standpoint as well, but also with just giving back in general, not just this one particular gift. What type of legacy are you looking to leave?
It's interesting. I guess I really hadn't started looking at my life in that way, but I think we have had a long history of giving, back to our community. As soon as I stepped in the NFL in 1994, I was fortunate to, to be around some older guys that had foundations and just saw what they were doing. And I immediately said, hey, I got to go and do that back in Durham. So that's where we started. We had a foundation for about 10 years around here, giving away scholarships for kids that were going to in-state schools, again, promoting, the schools in our UNC system. And when that kind of ran its course, me and the wife sat down and said, okay, what's our next phase of giving? And there's just been countless and various ways that we've been able to give to our community, to our church throughout the years. And that's just in our DNA. That's one thing I would say me and my wife definitely have in common, is just giving back without expecting anything in return.
Having the locker room named after you, you came out of there, not the same one, but you came out of the NC State locker room on game day all the time. And now other NC State players will walk out of the locker room named after you. How does that feel for you?
Well, for one, hopefully it'll be a name for some of the kids that they'll recognize. And that's just, to me, where it all starts. That's where all the relationships really starts. That's where all the joking and laughing. It's just such a influential place when it comes to the maturation of the football player is the locker room. It's the last place where the coach talks to you before you go out to battle. You know what I mean? It's the place where you go to even after an injury. It's all encompassing, if you will, that locker room, and just having your little space, with, your little cubby with your shoulder pads and everything. It's just always been a special place, no matter what level. But obviously at NC State, it was definitely a special place for me.
For me as a former athlete, that's probably the one thing I miss the most is the locker room and just hanging out with your teammates. That's where bonds are formed.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, you're in there laughing and joking, and it's just a fun time, and I just think that whole preparation, I think everybody prepares their mind for that day, whatever is that task for that day in the locker room, so definitely excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And your legacy kind of helps to live on, and it gives a lot of people something to strive towards. You had a good NFL career, able to come in and use your talents to go towards business as well now, and now giving back. So it's a great example to set. So that's amazing that you did that as well. So it's definitely something that's inspiring, something great to look up to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. We have to inspire our young people, and hopefully they'll take what I've done and take it to another level. That's what it's all about.
Why is it so important for people to give back either to their schools or community? Why is it important?
Well, you got to understand, these universities, it's a business, right? So they do have to have funds coming in, donations coming in for that business to thrive and strive in the way that we all would want them to be. I think we're very, very fortunate the way the UNC system is set up, that we do get some money from legislature. But other than that, it's going to come from donations. So whether it's NC State or Carolina or Elizabeth City or Central, we all do need help. They all do need help.
That's awesome. It's always great to see folks decide to give back. Talk about maybe the community that you grew up in Durham, and then some of where you came. You went to NC State, and of course you got some influences from the Raleigh area as well to help make you who you are, and you went on to become a very successful NFL player. How did your communities help to shape you as a person that built that love that made you want to come back and give some back?
Well, I think for me, community started back in Georgetown, South Carolina, a little town in between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. That's actually where I was born. Okay. And we moved to Durham when I was 2. So, but I saw my grandmother, because my mom would always drop me off every summer back down there. I just saw her and her willingness to give, and just how she did it with such a smile on her face, with a woman that really didn't have much at all, just working in tobacco fields and cotton fields her whole life. But she gave so much back to her community, and I wanted to mimic that. And that just kind of grew from there. But, growing up in Durham, obviously Durham was going through a transition, with the big tobacco industries leaving. And so Durham was, it wasn't in its best light, that it is right now, to say the least. I can remember a lot of days walking those streets downtown. Everything was dark and dilapidated or what have you. And obviously the spotlight's on Durham now, and everything is turned on, and you got people from all over the world obviously coming from a development perspective to Durham.
So I want to go into your time at Northern Durham High School, if I remember correctly. That's where you went to high school.
Yeah.
What was the recruiting process like for you then? You obviously went to NC State, but this is back in a time where there wasn't online clips of kids on YouTube or on Instagram,
right,
showing their highlights. So what was it like getting recruited back in that time?
To be honest, I don't know how, coaches found out how they did it back then, but I can remember, my junior and senior year, the college coaches coming around and being at practice and all that. That was obviously an exciting time. And obviously my coach was pretty well connected. I mean, Coach Browning, who's I think assistant coach over at Carolina right now, is just I think one of the best high school coaches that's ever come through North Carolina. So, and we had some great teams. I think we may have lost 3 games the entire 3 years I was there. So it was fun, to be honest. Obviously the big thing back then was going on the 5 official visits. I think now these kids get on the campuses so much more often than we were able to back then. But I was blessed to be recruited by pretty much all the ACC schools and a couple of schools in the SEC. But State ended up being the right place for the right time. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And it's great to always see the talent stay close to home. as well. So you go to NC State, have a great career there, and transition into the NFL. Did you ever have a moment in maybe one of your first games where you kind of sat back and you couldn't believe it? Like, wow, like I'm actually here. Like that kind of happens to me sometimes with television. This is something I dreamed about as a kid. And then I sit back and like, you forget all the complaints that you may have for certain things. You're like, no, I'm here. I'm living what I was, dreaming about doing. Did you have a lot of those moments starting off in your first year?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, it happened draft day, just being blessed and fortunate, to being asked to come to New York and, and be there with all the other guys and Paul Tagliabue holding up the jersey and all that, it hit me right then. It was just like, wow, this is a culmination of a lot of hard work and who would have thought it would have been me, but obviously putting the work in and obviously having a little talent behind it, got me on that stage.
So you played 4 years at Minnesota, and then you go to my team. My family's from Western Pennsylvania, so I'm a Steeler fan. So I'm thinking back in the day, like I remember Dewayne Washington when he signed with the team back in the 90s. So this is a fun moment for me. Did you, with Bill Cowher was your head coach, who's also an NC State grad? Did you guys have any conversations about NC State, about what he experienced at State and what you experienced at NC State?
To be honest, not too much, not really. I mean, we had definitely a player-coach relationship. You know what I mean? I mean, we would from time to time maybe say a little something about the game or something like that, but never nothing too much. But obviously, it was great. The fact that Coach was a Wolfpacker and the fact that he got into the Hall of Fame, that was huge for us.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting growing up watching football during that time. It always felt like it was the Steelers and the Cowboys. For me as a kid, that was really like big time as the teams in the NFL. I just want to know, just from a player standpoint, I know a lot of times fans get into teams that they don't like, but was there a team that you just didn't like and you maybe still don't like as much right now, just simply because you played against them and you just have that that loyalty towards one of your teams that you played with?
Well, I mean, I kind of watched the game a little different, right? Having played it, as a job, you know what I mean? So it not so much don't like. I mean, I understand what each team is going through out there to win a football game. It's very, very tough. And it's only, small margin between, the Kansas Cities of the world and maybe the, I don't know, Cincinnati Bengals or what have you. But so it wasn't a team that I really just disliked, to be honest. Nah, not really.
It's okay. I'll say Cleveland Browns for you. Cleveland Browns. That is totally
there's a big rivalry there now. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was huge rivalry games. Yeah. Obviously the Ravens, because they were the original Cleveland Browns, all that. I mean, there was some really, really big games. And obviously when I was in Minnesota, where anytime we played the Packers, that was a huge game. And, growing up, around here, obviously Sterling Sharp was huge. Player at the University of South Carolina. So getting to play against him my rookie year, that was big because he was pretty much at the top of his career at that point. And I think I've had a pretty good game against him, but him and Brett, they were tough.
What was it like taking the field against some of the best players that have ever played the game, the names that are still known today?
Yeah, I think you learn early on that as a player, you can't get caught up on the name on the back of the jersey. Mm-hmm. I had an old guy tell me that, and it really took that to heart because, I was a little bit in awe when I played against Sterling, but somewhere in between there after that game, I think we may have played them maybe my second game, my rookie year, or if not the first, one or two. I had an old guy kind of pull me to the side and kind of let me know that. And that resonated with me. And I'm like, that's true. At the end of the day, we're all out here on the same field. We all got the, one common goal is to win the game. So, but obviously I was blessed to play against all of them. I mean, obviously Michael Irvin and Jerry Rice a couple of times. T.O. You can go on and on.
I want to talk about your time coaching. You're at Heritage High School for a little bit and you decided to step away. One, are you going to think about getting back into coaching at some point? And two, what did you learn from those, being able to now take what you've learned as a player throughout your career and even as a professional, and then imparting that to the next generation of football players?
Well, I tell you, my time, the 3 years at Heritage, 2015 to 17, was a great time for me. I needed that at that point in time. I wanted to be able to lead a group of young men and see what we could make out of it. Be the person that had the last say so, if you will. And I truly feel like we're able to make an impact on the young people. And I really realized at that time just how much they need, and how much time it requires. And I think that was the thing that made me step away, because I started to feel like I was maybe not giving them all the time that they needed and deserved. But for the time we were there, I was blessed with some great guys, great players that's obviously playing college ball now. So, we had a great run. I really take my hat off to every high school coach, because they do exponentially more than we ever could know when it comes to these young people.
Absolutely.
So some of those players you mentioned playing college ball, Drake Thomas, Thayer Thomas, Ricky Person, all at NC State right now. Did you have any influence on their decision?
No. I had no influence. Nah, I tell people ask me that all the time. Like, no, I tell you go to the school that you feel like is best for you. Communicate with your family. Now, I would pretty much lay it all out there for them when it came to all the schools, because they all were looking. They had so many excellent choices. Because my coach did the same thing for me. When I was getting recruited, I just knew I was going to the University of South Carolina. And he kind of said, hey, wait a minute, don't make any hasty decisions. And that was kind of the same kind of tutelage I tried to pass on to those guys. Now, yeah, I'm excited they're in the red and white, but that was definitely their choice.
You tell them, no, go wherever you want to go, but you're wearing an NC State hat and you have like no, just go wherever you want to go. Like it's fine, Hey, roll me to the game on Saturday.
Don't forget about my quarterback, Gunnar Hogram. He's over at Duke, so yeah, that was my quarterback too. So great player.
When you see those guys on screen, that's got to be a proud feeling, seeing what they're doing at this level for you.
Yeah, it is. And as a player, you're just playing the game ever since I was young. You could see it, in certain kids and those guys that you mentioned. I definitely could see that they truly had potential to play, at the college level, at a high level, and they're definitely making that come to fruition. They really are.
So outside of the philanthropy, what's next? What do you have that you want to accomplish within the next few years that's really getting you going every single day?
Well, we have a commercial development company. We got some good projects going on in the little smaller towns, from Wilson to Fayetteville to Danville to Rocky Mount. Really excited about that, just the impact, the transition you can help these smaller towns reimagine what they can be like, what they can be. Everybody looks up to, Durham and Raleigh and Charlotte, but there's a lot of great towns, in North Carolina. So my company, we're doing our best to go in there just to bring some development to those towns. So we're excited about that. And, coaching in the future, you never know. Every time I go out to practice over at State, boy, I tell you, I'm like, man, I get excited about it. I end up hopping in the drills. I know the coaches are like, man, who's this guy? What is he doing? But that passion will always be there. So you never know from that perspective. And just from a philanthropy perspective, we're going to keep that going. As long as we're continuing to be blessed, we're going to continue to give our time, talents, and our treasures. It's just not about, the monetary thing for us. It's about being there, being around, whatever I'm needed at the time. My wife also, she's actually teaching at State now. So she's truly giving her time back to the school. So in any way we see fit that we can while we're here, we're going to do it.
You said Danville. I guess that means Danville, Virginia. That's where my mom is from.
Yeah.
I still have some cousins and things over there. So what has your company done over there in Danville? Well,
we haven't done anything yet, but we got a couple of projects that's in process to hopefully maybe some from apartments to some townhomes or whatever. Because obviously, they got the big casino coming up there in Danville. So
yeah, that's big. That's a town that definitely needs it for sure. When you talk about the tobacco industry leaving Durham, the mill industry, I guess. What do we call it? The hosiery and all that. That's all that's leaving Danville and all that. And so I know that's an area that definitely needs a lot. So for sure. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to have this time with you, and it's very inspiring to hear somebody who is from the area, from the 919, and went off and did some amazing things, and now is coming back and making sure that the future is continues to be bright. So I'm glad that we had a chance to talk with you and meet you today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, man. I mean, at the end of the day, if we want to see change in society, we got to be that change, right? And that's just what I try to pass on to my children, and obviously to the community. We can't just sit around and talk about it. We have to do our part to be that change that we want to see.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Mr. Dewayne Washington, doing some great things in the community. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Dennis, I've never had anything named after me. And to think about a locker room being named after you that's a big time deal. My wife doesn't even want to name, if we have a son, she doesn't even want to name him Chris Jr. She's like,
okay.
Yeah. My wife is like, no.
This is why you name him Chris the Second. Because, like, for example, for me, I'm named after my dad, but I am not a junior. I'm Dennis Cox the Second. Okay. So you can just go Chris Lee the Second. That's okay. That's okay. Actually, I encourage that.
I told her that, and she somehow thinks that's worse.
What? Hold on. I am now offended. I am now offended by this.
You should be, because I like the idea. I love the idea. Like it's one of those things where, and then I would just be, called, the first,
Chris Senior. Well, you can do that too.
I don't want to be called senior. I'll be called the first.
Okay. You're the first.
Christopher Lee the first.
All right.
I think that is a great idea.
Yes.
To do that. And then my son, if I have a son, all right, he could be Christopher Lee the Second. I see nothing wrong with that idea, but my wife, Carissa Lee, calling her out because I know she listens to this, is against that whole idea. And look how Dennis turned out. He's the co-host of the Culture State podcast. That's a great
example that you want to use, Chris.
No. You are the co-host of the Culture State podcast and the Culture State Saturday radio show. You are successful, young man.
Sure, we'll call it that.
See, this is what Christopher Lee II could be.
I've done pretty well for myself. So
anyway, the whole point is, clearly I haven't done anything great enough to have anything named after me, not even my own kid, but whatever. Dewayne Washington is great enough to have a locker room named after him. So that is a great guy.
And he has former players that play for him at Heritage High School, which is just up north of Raleigh and Wake Forest. Yeah. He has players that play for him that are in that locker room still. Drake Thomas, Thayer Thomas, Ricky Person Jr., guys who start at NC State. So it is like a legacy almost kind of being passed down from former player to coach to current player.
By the way, if you guys don't get a chance to listen to Culture State Saturdays on 99.9 The Fan, you're kind of missing out on some really good treats, because Dennis and I we have nicknames for people. So Drake Thomas, who went to Heritage High School, I call him the certified tackle boy.
Yeah.
Because his name is 1, Drake. All right. And then 2, he tackles people a lot.
He does.
So with certified lover boy coming out, he's a certified tackle boy. Ricky Person Jr., one half of the Outsiders.
That's right.
It's the NC State Wolfpack. Him and Bam Knight, they're a dynamic duo. They're doing great coming out of that backfield. We call them the Outsiders. Those are all things that have happened right there on Culture State Saturday, which you can listen to every Saturday on 99.9 The Fan or the WRAL Sports Fan app. Just a little plug right there.
Yeah, just again, wherever you listen to WRAL, that's us. We're there. WRAL Sports Fan, the app, 100%. We're all there.
And if you're not in the 919, you can, go to the app, go to the website.
Free.
We're there. It's free. Sounds good. Really good stream. Very high quality stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. 100%. So
it would be high quality if I could have Christopher Lee II, but we have another name picked out. It's close to Chris.
Okay.
But it's not Christopher Lee II.
Maybe one day.
You win some, you lose some. Maybe one day. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to the Culture State podcast. And expect me to talk about being in the doghouse next week. I'm Chris Lee.
I'm Dennis Cox. I'm going to work on getting Chris out of the doghouse.
Yeah, I might be sleeping in this wide open space in this new house downstairs on the couch for a little bit.
There you go. Enjoy that sectional, good sir.
Yeah, I've got all the sections I can sprawl out on at night. All right, guys. Give us that thick 5-star rating. We'll see you again next week.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WRAL Sports Fan app.